everyone? Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello, Ross Nation, and welcome back. I'm your host here, Dan. And as you can see in front of me, I'm joined by the fabulous Pat Fitzmaurice. How are you, Pat? Are you well?
I'm doing well, Dan. Great to talk to you. And, sorry that Murph can't be here with us, but I know he's, bitten by some sort of gigantic bug and, needs to recover. So,
yeah, we don't have any gigantic bugs over here that are renowned for biting people. It's normally quite a safe place to be, but whatever reaction he's had off it is pretty bad. His legs are fair size, so.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's you guys are in England, not in Australia or New Zealand, where they get some of these ridiculously giant spiders and other beasties. So tough.
Bizarre one. It happens, I guess. Allergies and stuff to all sorts of things. So, but Pat, for the people who don't know, you're the managing editor for FatasyPros. Murph described you last week as kind of his boss, I guess.
Right?
I
suppose. Yeah, I don't know if I see it quite that way. Friends first, boss, underling second. But yeah, I give him assignments and things of that nature. So technically,
good luck trying to tame him. I have to do it for an hour a week, and that is hard enough trying to keep him in check. So good luck with that one. I don't envy that at all. But tell us what you're doing at FatasyPros now. What are you guys working on? It's a busy time of year. It's our Christmas, as me and Murph like to say.
Yeah, we're trying to nail down our in-season schedule right now, doing the final preparations for that because that's going to be upon us in no time. And meanwhile, just dashing out a lot of fantasy content for people as we enter draft season. So we want to make sure we have plenty of offerings for them, and I think we do at FatasyPros. We've got our draft kit on the site already. Nearly all of it is free. Some of it's premium, and I think you'd find the premium stuff worthwhile. But we're going to be continuing to roll out new stuff throughout August too. So.
It's exciting. You say draft season's upon us. Scott Fish Bowl kicked off last week, and that's kind of the opening of the floodgates, if you will, for redraft season to come away. So, you part of that yourself, sir?
I am. In the Edinburgh division, so I'm
nice.
Drafting with a lot of blokes from the UK. And
there is. And how have you found it?
I've found it I thought it might be a slow draft since we have people operating in such different, we've got people on the west coast of the US and in the UK. So, 9 hours difference between some of the people, but it's actually gone pretty smoothly, going at a reasonable pace. I think we'll probably be done Wednesday at the latest.
Okay. So you're 15, 16-ish now, moving on.
Yeah.
Forward, so.
How's it gone for you so far?
I'm okay. We're mid-15th. So, yeah, again, it's been great. I'm in an imaginary one. For me, Scott Fish is all about meeting other people. So I didn't want to tie myself to London and places here. So I went for an imaginary place. And it's been fantastic. I met some great people. We're having good fun. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So
very nice.
It's been really enjoyable. So just quickly as well, we met another one of your writers the weekend. So you may not know, but we hosted what we call the UK FFC, Fantasy Football Collective, on Saturday. It's our kind of expo, if you will. We saw what you guys have been doing in Canton there. We all got very jealous during COVID. We couldn't attend, so a few of us decided to put on a show. First one was on Saturday. We had a lot of people, some of the people you're drafting with in Edinburgh, I know was in attendance, and we'll probably be listening. So don't give away too much tonight because on your late round running backs, because they'll have ears on it, I'm sure. But we think we had 3 FatasyPros writers there in total. Murph was on one of our panels of speakers. Tom Strachan was part of the panel that I hosted. And we had Andrew Seifert, all the way from the USA, who happened to be holidaying here at the same time, popped along to the show as well, spent the day with us as well. So, fantastic guy, great insight into everything we do. So,
wonderful that Andrew happened to be. I knew he was going over there for a couple of weeks. Maybe it was even close to a month, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's here to August sometime. So
so it coincided with the event. That's fantastic because he really is a nice guy and fabulous writer, knows his stuff.
Yeah. We spent some time talking. It's hard when you're running and organising an event such as that to get time as much as you'd like to meet people. But yeah, made the effort to say hi and listen to him. And it was amazing that he could be there. And we're we're hoping a few others might make the trip over next year as well. We spoke to Bob Lung, who's a fan, a guest we have on the show quite often, and he's hoping to pop over for next year's event as well. So
Excellent.
It would be awesome. The more the merrier. So we're here to talk about running backs, I guess. Redraft ADP on running backs. So what have you got? Jonathan Taylor's going 101, generally, pretty much in every draft, everywhere right now.
Yeah, I mean, I am, and it's over here. There are definitely pockets of Christian McCaffrey advocates.
Okay.
And I think the angle on that is that McCaffrey, when healthy, maybe has an upside that Taylor doesn't. When he's basically averaged over 20, 22 PPR points per game when healthy, and that's just crazy upside. Like, rarely are you disappointed by a Christian McCaffrey game when he plays the whole game. Gets plenty of touches, in line to get that same sort of workload again. But I mean, the counter is that Taylor has been pretty much indestructible in 3 years of college and a couple of years in the NFL so far, and has just produced at a high level pretty consistently. Once his rookie year, it took him a few weeks to get his role sorted out, but once they realized what they had on their hands and started treating him in a manner befitting a workhorse of his caliber, it's been pretty fantastic. So I think Taylor is probably the safer play. McCaffrey's just missed so much time the last 2 years. I can understand the arguments there, and McCaffrey is my number 2, but I do think it's Taylor.
So you're
McCaffrey.
A Taylor guy.
I am a Taylor guy.
That's interesting because I am a McCaffrey guy.
Are you? Yeah, I totally understand the argument.
I play to win. I'll take the risk. I may lose him, but I'll tell you what, if you get 14 games out of him, if he plays 14 of the 16, 17 in the season, you're probably over the fantasy season going to be level with Taylor. I don't think you're any worse off in terms of points scored. So I would shoot for it. I think McCaffrey's ceiling is far higher than Taylor if he can stay healthy. And it's a big if after the last 2 years, obviously. But yes, where I am. It's an interesting one. So the next bit, we kind of fall into a funny bracket, don't we? The guys of Eckler, Henry, Najee Harris has popped his way in, Dalvin Cook's there, and maybe Joe Mixon in that bracket as well. Depending on your draft and what the situation is, they're a free-for-all almost in terms of the order they're coming off the board.
It really is. I think you're going to see all sorts of different ordering of the top backs. So for me, it's Cook, just because I know, as with McCaffrey, there's sort of this concern about his health. Mm-hmm. He has, missed time pretty much every season he's played. But another case, I mean, and I guess this would not be a hard sell to you as a McCaffrey guy. Like, we know if Cook plays, he's going to produce numbers. Like, I think he's averaged over, around 120 total yards from scrimmage per game throughout his career, and 3/4 of a touchdown per game. So you're going to get numbers when he plays. And it's also fairly easy to handcuff him if you want to take the risk out of it by drafting Alexander Madison in the 10th round, or maybe you want to prioritize that in the 8th or 9th just to make sure that no one steals him out from under you. So he's there for me. Eckler, I just think there's a very safe floor with his pass catching. I don't think we're going to see the touchdown total anywhere near where it was last year. And I don't think we're going to see him get the same amount of early down work. They pretty specifically drafted Isaiah Spiller to do that, because I think Eckler said himself that he felt he was maybe taking on a bit too much last year. But very safe floor in a high-powered offense. Najee Harris has that unquestioned workload, the run catch ability. Derrick Henry right there too. I mean, for me, Derrick Henry is kind of a fade. I've got him at running back 6. Okay. I know some people like him as a running back 3.
I'd switch Henry and Cook myself, personally.
Yeah, you'd have him up at 3.
I think Henry had the injury last year, but Henry's injury last year, I believe with his toe, it wasn't a muscle injury. It should be something he can recover from relatively easily. I think Cook almost every year has missed games. So just purely on that basis, I think I'd feel... Sure. And also last year, I think Henry was something like 400 or 500 yards ahead of Taylor in rushing yards before he went down. I think it was a long way anyway. So Yeah, I would just have Henry. I think he ultimately gives you that. In PPR, he doesn't offer a lot, but I think for pure usage, especially with all the new receivers in town in there, they're set to run the ball heavy, I feel.
Yeah, people view injury risk differently, and Henry, I think, was on pace for 400 touches last year. And I feel like it was almost irresponsible the way the Titans were using him, and that it was almost inevitable there was going to be some sort of physical breakdown with that sort of usage. And they've been using him like that for a few years now. So I'm worried about the compounded toll that might take on him. Like, I think there might be a bit of an elevated risk there, especially if they continue to use him so much. But I mean, if they do use him in that manner and he gets back to what he was doing a couple of years ago when he was withstanding that sort of workload, and certainly as at his size, if anyone's going to be able to withstand it, it's him. I mean, he is just like such a unique value, and you almost don't care that he doesn't catch many passes because he does so much damage on the ground. But you know, I'm a little worried about how years of that sort of workload are going to pile up with him. And he's sort of, you know, getting into what we know are the twilight years of a running back.
Careful. We're both
I know. Over that, right. I know.
Right?
It's sad that we start talking about guys being too old when they're like 27 or 28 at the running back position. It's just comical at the time. I'd love to be 27 or 28 again.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be running the ball into 300-pound guys 400 times a year, though.
Correct.
I guess that right there is what you're talking about. It's going to take its toll. And the Steelers took a similar approach with Harris last year, right? Harris had so much work. And Murph was a big banger of the drum late on for your waiver wires, picking up a Benny Snell or something like that, because they just either had to rest him, sit him, or something was going to happen. And it didn't quite prevail that way. It didn't pan out. But I don't know if they can take the same approach again this year.
Right, and it's also not a very good offensive line in Pittsburgh. It's one of the worst in the league. And rather than address it in the draft, they picked a quarterback in the first round, Kenny Pickett. And I don't think he is necessarily going to enhance the value of, I don't think the quarterback, whether it's Najee or whether it's Najee playing with Pickett or Trubisky, I don't know that that's going to fundamentally affect Harris's value. But that bad offensive line is going to be a problem. And we didn't really see Harris have any breakaway runs until I think week 16 or 17, I think was his first run of more than 20 or more yards. So he was doing it very incrementally and just doing it with pure volume, which, it's a good trick and it works for a certain amount of time. But, as you sort of referenced, like that's kind of a dangerous game to play. And, more
we
workload.
Last year, but once it was out of contention, you'd expect him to start easing that workload and sit him, and they just didn't come. They just kept using him, but they can't do it indefinitely, I guess. So
and the greater the workload, the greater the injury chances. So that's the issue.
Yeah. We then come into a funny bit that always surprised me. There's a guy in here, ADP on yours on FatasyPros is 10.8. Javonte Williams. Please tell me why Javonte Williams has an ADP of 10.8, because I don't buy it at all.
I think the eye test he passes with flying colors. He looks fabulous. He is a beast, carries tacklers for extra yardage, powers through arm tackles, fast, catches passes, all of that.
I do. I agree with all of that.
But we know that Melvin Gordon is very, very good. And
there's the problem.
Has been brought back for another season, and I guess it just depends on how they decide to adjust how they decide to calibrate the offense, and are they going to once again have it be basically an exact 50-50 split with Javonte and Gordon every week, or do they adjust the sliders a little bit and ratchet up Javonte's workload and slide down Gordon's a bit as he gets into his twilight years?
There's no doubt Javonte's the better back. I don't question that. The usage, as you say, last year their seasons were almost identical in terms of the production, in terms of attempts and yardage and touchdowns and everything. It mirrored itself. They brought Gordon back. I think he's on a 1-year deal. People are talking about Javonte will start winning the role and he'll win more chances. Actually, if you are Denver, do you not actually get halfway, 3/4 way through the year and rest Javonte for next year and start abusing Gordon? Because he's going to be out the door.
Yeah, you wonder about that if they're not, depending on what their situation is as far as the playoffs go. But yeah, like there's
You
really
protect your
no,
asset and use the
yeah,
guy that's on the way out.
no incentive to beat Javante up. I agree.
Yeah.
So I think if there is a shift in workload from the pure 50-50 we saw last year, it's likely to be more of a subtle one than Javante all of a sudden becoming a workhorse. But Javante is really good. He's going to play in a division with a lot of shootouts. It should be a good offense. A lot to like there for sure, but I don't think I could personally draft him in the first round of a fantasy league.
I mean, you could draft him in the first round. He could have the year he had last year. Great, you're going to be in the playoffs, depending on the rest of the roster with that production. And then, as I say, they could take that chance to protect their asset, utilize the guy that's comes out the door, and you're then going into the playoffs with a very limited guy sat on your roster. But you can't drop him because of who he is and what he cost you.
Right. So, like, I got him in the fourth round of the Scott Fishbowl, and
Okay.
you know, as you know, Dan, that's a different
Here I
scoring
am,
system.
slagging off
so-
the guy you drafted. Look at that.
Yeah, no, but I mean,
What
I hear you. Like, if you can get Javante Williams like in this late second or early third round, and then if it's a 50-50 and he just, you know, plays well as part of a 50-50, like it's not a costly pick. He's good enough to use every week. You're not taking a major loss off him if you get him there. But if you're taking him in the first round, late in the first round, and he's playing in a 50-50 timeshare with Melvin Gordon, you're just, you're giving away a chance to, you kind of have to get a hit. You have to hit on that first round guy. He has to succeed for you, and you're sort of underachieving with your first rounder if Javante has that role again.
And me and Murph talk about, in unknown situations, take the latter of the two in a draft. In this situation, late first round, you're picking up Javante. If you can go to the, 9th, 10th round possibly, and pick up a Melvin Gordon, the chances of that even split and the value being there is incredibly different. So, behind someone like Javante Williams is someone for me who is a whole round later at 11-8, is a whole pick later, is someone like Leonard Fournette, who will be the lead guy, who will get the bulk of the work, who does get the catches in Tampa. I can't see there's any direct competition for his role. Take him instead and pick up Gordon later on, in my eyes.
Here's my counter on
Go on now.
on Fournette is that last year, and I mean, I think it was kind of the perfect storm for him last year as a pass catcher with a 44-year-old quarterback who did not want to get hit and who would quickly check the ball down if there was any sort of pressure.
Yep.
And, Ronald Jones is a disaster in the passing
Can't
game.
pass block. Yeah.
Can't pass block, can't catch. So
Nope.
they weren't going to use him. I don't think they felt comfortable with Keyshawn Vaughn there. And Giovanni Bernard, who can pass block and catch passes, was hurt. So it all fell to Fournette, and it just worked out so perfectly for him with this immobile quarterback who was very eager to check down the minute the pocket collapsed. Now Giovanni is still there, and he's healthy again.
Yep.
And they drafted a guy who can pass block and catch passes with Rachaad White. So I guess that's the concern about Fournette. That coupled with the fact that he was, I think 200 and close to 260 pounds in OTA and looking like a mastodon when they
He
showed
enjoyed
those
his
pictures.
time off.
He did. There were a few, pints and big meals, I think, for him in the off season. So I'm a bit more like I would still draft, I think, Javante over Fournette just because I think I see enough paths for Fournette to disappoint this year.
Okay. Fair. Someone I'm big on. I've gone with him in Scott Fishbowl and other competitions and so on. I just think he has the opportunity, and if he can return 80% of what he did last year, which I think he could do, I'd take that value over Javante in the unknown situation that we speak about. So, another couple of guys, I guess unknown, different reasons. Alvin Kamara, ADP of 11, and similar Aaron Jones at 11.5. So Aaron Jones, nobody quite knows what that Green Bay backfield is going to be like. AJ Dillon had a fairly similar role. They've lost Devontae Adams in the offseason. Everyone's anticipating Jones may actually get some sort of slot work here and certainly some more targets off of this. And Dillon may pick up more of the rushing role. Kamara's obviously got the pending looming potential suspension on over his head, and I guess that's why his ADP is falling. But both could be huge value there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised Kamara's ADP hasn't fallen further, Dan, because he is, we don't know the outcome yet. We don't know the timetable for discipline.
Yeah.
But when it comes, it's likely going to be a 6-game suspension. And, it might even be worse if you're not getting it at the start of the season and all of a sudden you're sandbagged with this suspension at the midpoint or the playoffs of your fantasy season. The other thing I think is that Kamara's efficiency sort of cratered in his first year without Drew Brees running the offense there. He dipped to 3.7 yards per carry, fewer touchdowns, fewer receiving yards per game. I still think he's a pretty dynamic back, and
some of that I think was Taysom Hill though.
Yeah, for sure. Because
if you look back at the early part of the season when he had Winston before Winston's injury, he actually turned okay numbers.
Right, and we know that Taysom Hill from the year before we saw when he filled in for Breeze that we saw Kamara's target counts shrivel in those weeks. So I think some of that will normalize a little bit. I don't know if we'll be able to dependably pencil him in for 81 receptions like he had with Drew Brees for 3 straight years, but maybe a little bit closer to that. I think it's the suspension that is maybe the most troubling potential obstacle to value with him. So the Packers, it was interesting that in the last 8 regular season games, Dillon and Jones played together last year. Dillon averaged, I think it was 13.7 carries a game, and Jones only 10.2. But Jones has also seen his usage in the passing game spike whenever Davante Adams has been out. I think there have been 7 games when they both been on the roster that Davante Adams missed. And over those 7 games, I think Jones averaged 7 targets a game. So the sort of usage you love to see. And I just think with such a depleted wide receiver core with Davante Adams gone and really no one proven brought in, their earliest, they drafted Christian Watson in the 2nd round, but he's a very raw prospect. I think the result of this is going to be that the Packers are simply going to run more, run at a higher rate than they did last year, and their defense is looking really good, so they might be able to do it as far as favorable game scripts. And I think they're going to throw to their backs at a higher rate. And both of those things, I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Packers led the NFL in total fantasy points this year. Right. So I think there's room we can look at Aaron Jones and say, yes, he should be a 2nd round pick. And I think we can look at Dillon and say, yes, he's worthy of going in the 5th or 6th round.
Yeah, it's about who your quarterback trusts in some of these situations, and Aaron Jones has shown year after year that he is someone that Rodgers can trust, and he's one of the few remaining guys there that fills that bracket now. So, yeah, I'm expecting a big workload from him. So we've kind of touched we've gone through 1st round, kind of early 2nd. You obviously mentioned Javonte, you don't mind, and you were a JT man at the start, but is there any of them you're missing? We haven't touched on Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift that sort of fit in that bracket.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Mixon and Swift are guys I'm pretty comfortable with right around their ADP, which is, I think, very end of the 1st round, very early 2nd round. Quality workload for Mixon as far as, enough usage in the passing game and, plenty of touches. I don't think his usage is really going to change as long as he's healthy. And Swift is just so special in the passing game. And, also...
There could be a lot more targets in Detroit now to take those... A lot more weapons to take those targets away, with Sharp coming in and Hockenson hopefully back fit and healthy again, and Jameson Williams is certainly in the back half of the year. You'd expect some kind of work from him. So there's a lot more to share around, I guess.
And he's not just a little scat back. They've used him at the goal line, too. And the Lions quietly have one of the better offensive lines in the National Football League. So, I'm very enthusiastic about Swift.
Good. Someone that hopefully build. Just below them, just before we get into who you find value there, it's 2 guys that were going off the board sort of 2 and 3 behind McCaffrey not that long ago in Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott. Dropping away. Still, the expectations of them and the hope, I guess, that one day they'll be who we hope they would be is still there. But both, I think, people are getting a little disappointed by being disappointed.
And I think it's maybe that we haven't seen either guy look himself for 2 full seasons, really not since 2019. And it seems as if, at least in the drafts I've been in lately, there is more optimism for Barkley. He showed up at OTAs looking like a Greek god, a Marvel superhero.
Yeah.
He's talking very excitedly about his usage in Brian Dable's new offense and how he's lining up all over the place, and it's promising more usage in the passing game. So I can kind of, even though I have not been able to get on board with Barkley as a early second round pick, which is where I've seen him going lately, I can at least buy the narrative that Saquon is going to be Saquon again.
Okay.
Even though the injuries have kind of been piling up, and you wonder if he still has that special athleticism. Zeke, I'm definitely fading. Okay. I think they're going to continue to give him the ball. I mean, he finished whatever was running back 6 last year, but it was also kind of a survivor bias thing where he just played every game, even though he was dealing with injuries, to his credit.
But that's what he gives you.
Right. He is. I mean, he has been durable, but I think we have seen some of the punishment add up, and we've seen that efficiency really wane of late. So I just don't know if you're getting the same back, and now he's kind of squarely in the part of the he's past the age apex, let's say.
Okay.
And I feel like betting on a bounce back is a really risky bet. I feel like even though his ADP is as reasonable as it's ever been, I just don't know if that's coming back at all. And we've seen Tony Pollard look better for 2 straight years. Granted, it's different usage, and Pollard is able to come in on a more limited basis, and maybe he doesn't have to sort of manage his efforts as much as Zeke, the guy who's in on the greater majority of snaps and taking the bigger workload.
He's getting a bigger pay packet.
Exactly. Right. They need to keep busy. And no doubt they will, as long as Jerry Jones is there. Like, Zeke is going to be the guy, but I'm just a little worried we're not going to see the old Zeke come back.
Okay. But if you're in a draft and you've missed some of them earlier guys and you've took your draft a different way in the first, would you be okay with a Barkley Zeke type character in the second, or are you looking somewhere else?
I'm looking somewhere else.
And where are you looking then, Pat?
So some of those other guys we talked about, like I'd
Leonard and Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Aaron Jones, even Javonte for sure. And I mean, there's some guys that I think you can routinely get in the 4th who I actually like more than Zeke.
Okay. I'm going to chuck James Conner at you in the 2nd. How does that sit with you?
Another guy who's dealt with some injury. Like, I know we saw him absolutely smash last year. Well, early on, he was basically just getting lucky because he was getting all these touchdowns and sharing the work with Chase Edmonds, and it was kind of a fluky path to fantasy value. But then Edmonds got hurt, and all of a sudden Connor was being used as an every down back. Yep. And he was catching passes, and he was being really efficient and scoring touchdowns, and he was just looking fantastic. I think the assumption is that with Edmonds gone, maybe he might taste a little bit of that same value this year. I don't think that'll be the case. They brought in Darrell Williams. I think they still like Benjamin, even though he's been around for a few years and hasn't done anything. So I think they have enough other options to sort of spell Connor and not give him the full usage we saw when he was just freakishly valuable for a stretch of a month or more last year.
See, I'm quite high on Connor. I see that a lot of what the Cardinals done was, you called it, I guess, a bit of luck at the time, and it probably was the fact that he was in the snaps and the plays were called, but they were designing plays to him, for him. His situation hasn't changed a lot. You'd expect them, quarterbacks the same. The receivers, other than, I guess, Hopkins being out and Brown coming in, haven't changed greatly. And I'd expect the coaching staff hasn't changed. So I'd expect Connor to have a very similar outcome.
Yeah, I mean,
it's one of the less risky plays, I feel, at that spot.
I understand, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he got 8 to 10 touchdowns, but I don't think he's going to get. How many did he have last year? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was close to 15, I want to say, and I don't know if we're going to see that again. So
we need to draft together because we can both have whoever we want because we're not taking either of each other's people. Just build a roster we like. We're done with it. So what I want to talk to you about is who are you looking at? We've got the ADPs here. Who do you like at the value? We've run through the sort of first couple of round guys here. Who do you think is value at their spot, even whether it be in the first two, whether it be a little bit later on? You said there's a couple of fourth round guys you like. Who do you think on ADP at the minute is offering value for you if you're going into a redraft now?
Yeah, so there are a couple of guys who kind of suit, these guys also happen to suit the builds I like. I tend to go very robust wide receiver in the early rounds, especially if you're playing in a format where you have to start three wide receivers. Because then if you look at it, if you're not counting kickers or defenses and you're just looking at, one quarterback, two running backs, three receivers, a tight end, and a flex, wide receivers are going to be either 37.5% of your starting lineup, non-kicker, non-defense, or 50% if you flex a fourth wideout. So I don't want to get caught short at that position. And, sometimes I'll pay down a little bit for running back. And if I start with, two or three receivers in the first 4 rounds,
right,
and I'm looking, maybe now I'm looking for a second running back. I mean, I think Breece Hall and Cam Akers are fantastic values where they are. Okay. And Cam Akers, so I know a lot of people are going to be down on him because he did not do very much in the playoffs last year. Coming back from, yeah, I mean, it was tough. Well, for one thing, I mean, they were playing some of the better run defenses in the NFL, aside from that very first game against the Cardinals, who he actually did look pretty good against in that playoff game. And, he only got like a 1-game tune-up, a little bit of a workload in Week 17. And then the Rams just completely turned their backfield over to him, handed him the car keys. It's yours. And I think that bodes pretty well for his usage this year. I mean, they had Sony Michel completely healthy, and Michel had done a really admirable job when both Akers and Henderson were hurt. We've never seen, I don't think, in Sean McVay's, 5 years with the Rams, I don't think they've ever finished lower than 11th in total yards. Right. Back when Todd Gurley was still at the height of his powers, Gurley typically did not come off the field on third downs. Right. So, I'm excited about the prospect of heavy usage for Akers. And, I know for some people the Achilles injury is concerning. I mean, the fact that he came back 6 months after tearing his Achilles, he's like Superman. So, I'm enthusiastic about him. And, the price is very reasonable, just because of the Achilles and because of the lackluster playoff showing. And then Breece Hall is almost on the level of running back prospect as Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley. I mean, I think he comes in as a better, as far as just college production and speed and testing numbers. I think he's a better running back prospect than Najee Harris was. And Hall's going to be running behind a better offensive line than Harris is this year. The only difference is, of course, I mean, if you were setting a line betting on who was going to have more carries, you would probably, make Harris the favorite by 60-some carries. But we don't know. We don't really know how much Michael Carter is going to be used. We do know that
because he looked reasonable last year, Carter.
He did. He
looked a decent prospect.
He did, and he catches passes, so it's very possible Breece Hall is limited to early down work. But we do know they did invest a lot of draft capital in him. And I think the Jets' offensive line, like the Lions, is quietly pretty good. The interior three is excellent. They brought in Laken Tomlinson, who's a really good guard. If they can get good health out of Mekhi Becton, who's just an earth mover at almost 400 pounds, this could be one of the better run blocking lines in the league. And I'm kind of excited about the trajectory of that offense if Zach Wilson takes steps forward.
Yeah. The problem with both the Lions and the Jets, maybe for this year, I guess, is going to be game script in terms of running the ball often.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. At least they play in a division that does not look overwhelmingly tough. Yes, the Bills are there. The Patriots kind of maybe on the way down. Yeah. Who knows with the Dolphins? They might be up on the way up. Maybe not. But yeah, there might be some games where game script gets away from the running backs in New York a little bit, but at least Hall catches passes, so he has an out there.
As you say, I've avoided the unknownness of it. I don't doubt Breece Hall and his talent and proposition. It's just the unknown of who's going to lead that charge and what the usage will look like is something for this year. I'm just tiptoeing around a little bit. And I guess that's why his ADP is where it is, down at, 22?
Yes.
If he went into Pittsburgh in last year's draft instead of Harris, we saw Harris going off the board, mid to late first rounds?
Yes.
Breece Hall would be in that mix, easy.
Right. And that's it. We see discounts on rookie running backs every year. And in hindsight, we're able to identify them as discounts. Jonathan Taylor went too late his rookie year. Najee went a little too late last year. It's routine for these guys to be discounted much more than they are. And like Ken Walker is another one who I think, I mean, going around running back 30 or wherever it is right now, who might be a sneaky value.
Ken Walker's a guy I love. I just think opportunity in Seattle was just landed to him perfectly. I personally don't see Carson taking a field this year. I don't know how he comes back and how that's even manageable. And if he does, good luck to him. But I don't see how that can work. And Rashad Penny has proven year on year that he can't stay healthy. So I actually see Walker being given a lot of trust early if he can perform in training camp and deliver the job that they want him to do. I think the opportunities are there for Walker to be a pure-based runner-up in Seattle. And the value is a guy I'm incredibly high on this year. I think he has him over Hall, for instance. Hall's the better back. Hall, I think, is in a lot worse a situation than where Kenneth Walker's found himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's my view of it too, Dan. And I think Walker's not that far behind Hall as far as the sort of prospect he was, both with college production, although it was just sort of 1 year of college production. But part of that was that he transferred out of a very strange college offense at Wake Forest to a more conventional running back friendly offense at Michigan State. Excelled in his one season at Michigan State, went pro, tested great. And now, I think people are knocking him a little bit because of the quarterback situation and just the general decay of the offense in Seattle. But this is a terrific prospect who can be had really late. And if the running back position starts to get away from you, like that's a chance to play catch up in a hurry by taking a guy with the sort of upside that he has.
Sure does. So you mentioned a few guys early on that you're not drafting at all. You've got into sort of those early mid rounds and the guys you're looking for. Is there anyone in that bracket that you're avoiding? A lot seem to be avoiding David Montgomery, Antonio Gibson, Josh Jacobs is a long way down this ladder.
So Montgomery I'm sort of avoiding. I think he's a little too expensive right now considering that the Bears offense is really bad. It's probably going to be the worst offensive line in the league. And we don't know how this new regime feels about David Montgomery. The old coaching staff wanted to use him as a workhorse. Khalil Herbert was actually pretty good last year when Montgomery was hurt. And, there are some other guys behind them who we might see it be more of a committee. And then if you're looking at Montgomery as maybe the head of a committee in a bad offense, we'll be kind of questioning where he was going in drafts. Gibson, I'm actually surprisingly bullish on because I think the price has gotten cheap enough that I'm ready to buy. And if you look at his size and speed, he's a carbon copy of Jonathan Taylor. Right. And he's been a successful touchdown scorer. And he's he's got like a high percentage of breakaway runs. And he's shown a willingness to play through injury, like had a cracked shin bone last year that he was actually playing with. Yeah. And the only reason we don't like him is because they have Washington has decided that they want to use McKissick in that third down back role. And now they also brought in a pretty good prospect in Brian Robinson. But I do think teams are increasingly realizing they need 3 running backs to guard against injury and be prepared at the position. But I guess the overall point with Gibson, Dan, is that if someone had these kinds of measurables and a background as a pass catcher, a converted college wide receiver, and hadn't gotten his chance yet, fantasy Twitter would love this guy.
He was CMC 2.0 coming out of the draft, right?
Exactly, yes. People would be projecting a breakout for sure. We've already seen him play and be successful, and he just turned 24, and yet people are ready to walk away from him. So I think the value is pretty good on him this year.
Just doesn't feel sexy drafting Antonio Gibson.
Right, which is funny because
which is the perfect time to draft him.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you don't like big, fast running backs who can catch passes, that's fine. Leave him to me, and I'll happily take Antonio Gibson in the 5th.
All I've actually done today, if you hadn't noticed, is I've got Montgomery in the Scott Fishbowl. I've got Antonio Gibson in the Fishbowl. So this has been a great little review of my roster. So thanks for this, Pat.
Sure. Sorry for the lack of enthusiasm about Montgomery, Dan, but hopefully I made up with it.
Michael Carter as well. Yeah, fantastic. Good. So later on, then the new. I know we say it's not sexy to draft Antonio Gibson, but it is sexy now to go a 0 running back in these drafts. Do something different. Hero running back. Pick one of these early guys and then forget it forever. You've done that in a draft. A lot of the stuff's gone. Who are your late round guys here that you're looking to that you can not flex? These guys you can plug into your running back slots.
So, we've talked about like Melvin Gordon is one. Because I do think it's probably going to be, if not a carbon copy of last year's arrangement. I do think it's going to be Gordon still having a significant role in the offense. A big one is Ramondre Stevenson for me. And he had a really interesting rookie year, lost a fumble in his very first game and was promptly made a healthy scratch for the next 3, which is a typical Bill Belichick thing. He typically is not that generous to rookie running backs as far as playing time. But then he made his way back into Belichick's good graces, and I think he averaged 12 carries a game over his last 11 games. Once he was no longer a healthy scratch. He's built like a bowling ball. He's a big dude. He's like 230, has really nimble feet, and can catch passes. Like, even though we didn't see him catch a lot of passes last year, like that is a skill in his toolkit. So, like, I don't know about Damian Harris. If I know that, my friend Joe Dolan here from Fantasy Points has been doing a beat writer series, and he had the Boston Herald beat writer for the Patriots on predict that Stevenson will overtake Damian Harris
Did
at some point. And James White apparently is not, was seen like still hobbling around a little bit after his hip procedure last year. So if he's not able to be that satellite back for them, maybe Ramondre is kind of a satellite back plus who plays third downs and also plays on some early downs, which would really enhance his value.
James White's a 30-year-old back in a shared backfield off of hip surgery, and we're still talking about drafting him.
Yeah, I'm not. I can't say we went to the same university, Dan.
Nice.
James White and I, so I can't say too many bad things about him. University of Wisconsin. So, but yeah, I'm not drafting him this year. Sorry, James.
Fair. I'm sure you won't take it personally. Don't worry. Someone I'm still picking up late in these rounds is Cordarrelle Patterson. And I think if you've done that way, or you're looking for even a flex spot guy that can give you upside, or bye week cover type guy, I think Patterson still offers that upside at his current ADP, which is, where is it? Let's have a look. Sat at 28.7 at the minute.
Yeah, I guess the cons there that he's already on the wrong side of 30.
Yep.
That the Falcons seem concerned enough about the workload he had last year that they basically exempted him from off-season workouts and OTAs. Just said, heal up, buddy. And maybe the fact that this is going to be a really bad offense. But on the pro side for Cordarrelle Patterson, they really haven't added much at running back. Damian Williams, who's also old. Tyler Algier, who was a day 3 rookie pick. And, perhaps we shouldn't be scared of a day 3 rookie pick, usurping Cordarrelle's workload. He catches passes. His efficiency in the running game kind of dropped a little last year.
It did. They switched, didn't they? About 5-6 games out.
Yeah, like with 4 games, I think his last 4 he averaged like 2.4 a carry. But then again, I was touting Cam Akers, and 2.4 is about what he averaged in 4 playoff games. So I don't want to be a hypocrite.
You can make the numbers say whatever you want to.
Yeah, exactly, Dan. Right. So I don't mind it. The fact that Cordarrelle has stayed relatively cheap, and you can still get him around the 10th round.
He offers the upside there, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have as good a season as he had last year, but I think he could still be a potentially useful roster piece.
Cool. One of the last things I want to touch upon is some of these later round backs, you touched on Tyler Algier there being a third day back and how much are they going to use him. James Cook went into Buffalo. You've got Damian Pierce went into the Texans. Can you see any of these guys becoming fantasy relevant or becoming a lead on their rosters?
Yeah, I worry a little bit about the Texans situation. I just don't know if there's enough to, even if we see Damian Pierce break out of whatever committee they might use. I mean, as of now, I would probably bet that it's some sort of three-way timeshare with Pierce and Rex Burkhead and Marlon Mack.
Yep.
Like, even if we were to see Pierce get a clear majority of the workload there, are there enough touchdowns to go around with the Texans? Is there enough? Would you feel confident, even if he was like identified as the guy to have in that backfield, would that still be a player you would want to start in fantasy every week and feel comfortable with it? I'm not sure what the answer is there. So that's my hesitation on him. But again, he's going at like running back, 44 or something like that. So I think the risk is minimal. I'm not opposed to taking a shot at him late. And like deep leagues, these guys probably aren't going to be drafted in a typical 12-team league with like a 16-round draft. But like all the rookies, even though I touted Antonio Gibson, I'm kind of intrigued by Brian Robinson in Washington if he does get some sort of role. I'm kind of intrigued by Zamir White in Las Vegas, even though Josh Jacobs is in the last year of his contract, and maybe there's no incentive not to just run Josh Jacobs into the ground. But there's also, there's also, I mean, if they like Zamir White better, there's also no incentive not to move on. And then another guy,
they wouldn't have Adams, so they'll use the better player.
Yeah, and then like one guy I like is sort of my my all-purpose utility knife back, Dan, is Nyheim Hines. This year, like I like him as potential, just a guy you can feel fairly safe if you have injury problems or bye week problems that you can put into a flex spot or your second or third running back spot, whatever, and feel pretty good with him. I generally don't like drafting guys who, if the starter got hurt, would probably not have a chance to be the main back, and I don't think Hines would be. I think he'd still sort of keep his role where he's a passing down back plus occasional early down usage. But I just think we're going to see a lot more passes to the backs in Indianapolis with your Carson Wentz just didn't really throw to his backs that much. Matt Ryan is going to dump off to his backs quite a lot this year. And, it should be a pretty good offense. So I think Hines is going to get like a safe, he's going to be very safe, I think. Put up decent numbers, and if you need to squeeze out like 10 PPR points from someone in a pinch, I think he's your guy.
So the other person I've got in that kind of bracket for me, and it does depend on how he comes back from injury, is Gus Edwards. I feel he's a guy that will do a job if you desperately need him, if you picked him up late.
Better in standard and half-point PPR than full-point PPR, because we know he isn't going to catch any passes. The only, I don't know what to do with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards right now because, there have not been many definitive reports on their recoveries and how they're coming along.
We didn't even see Edwards, did we, at OTAs or anything? So
so this next month is going to be pretty important as to whether those two are draftable at cost. And
Mike Davis could be relevant again.
Right.
Which is worrying.
Yeah, so I do kind of like the rookie. He was another day 3 guy, and it's hard to overproject them. I do like this guy they got from Missouri, Tyler Beatty. Very small, but handled a very big load for Missouri in the toughest college football conference in the U.S. So we'll see. But I mean, if we get a clean bill of health for Edwards, then I like that call though.
Awesome. Just quickly, there's a couple of backfields that. I mean, we touched on New England, our minefields as to who is going to be what. The other two I'd throw in that is probably the Niners and Miami. There's a lot of ambiguity there. Can anybody sort of excel and become really relevant on a fantasy roster?
Yeah, it's funny to see Elijah Mitchell have the sort of season he had last year and still only be regarded as a low end running back 2 in drafts. I think his ADP is around what, running back 24, 25.
Elijah Mitchell is. I'm just right at the bottom of the list, so bear with us. I'll scroll all the way back to the top. Yeah, 24, 24, 23, depending on what website you use. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of issues with him. One is that he didn't catch many passes, and I think Trey Lance is probably going to dump off even less than Jimmy G did last year. Number two, the Shanahans, Kyle and his father Mike, have this history of changing running backs the way they change their socks, and
More frequently, yeah.
Some of your older listeners might remember one-year wonders for Mike Shanahan, like Tatum Bell and Mike Anderson and Ruben Drones and guys who kind of came out of nowhere to have these. Like, is Elijah Mitchell going to prove to be a one-year wonder? Like, Tyrion Davis-Price was not regarded as like a great running back prospect, but they drafted him fairly early. Then again, we also said the same thing about Trey Sermon last year and made the mistake of taking him just because they drafted him early. So that is really there's no backfield we should be paying closer attention to in August than the 49ers.
Trey Sermon is still somebody in that last round I'm picking up. Surely because of the way because of the way the Niners do use their backfield. He only needs half a game to get hot and look decent, and he'll have the jersey again the following week. And if it's a last week dart throw, they roll the hot hand and they roll with whoever's playing, and they'll rotate and rotate. And if you look half a decent prospect that week, you'll get work. And I can't rely on it week in, week in. I'd never put him into my starting lineup with any real confidence unless he's had 2 good weeks previously. But right now, late round dart throws, sitting on your bench before waivers open, I'm going to see what's going to happen in preseason in San Francisco.
Trey Sermon, I play in a couple of leagues that are like 14 team and 16 teams, and they go like 24 rounds each. Trey Sermon absolutely interests me in a draft like that. He was a college star over here. He was just fabulous in college. I mentioned having gone to the University of Wisconsin. He absolutely tore my Wisconsin Badgers apart when he was playing for Ohio State. So it would not surprise me if he resurfaced. And then you asked about Miami, Dan. Yeah, I guess I'm a little less interested in investing here. I was just on a podcast this morning with my friend Matt Kelly, who is into Chase Edmonds. I do think Chase Edmonds is the favorite to get, I would say, a plurality of the work. Okay. I don't think it's going to be 50% of the touches. I think it's going to be some sort of committee. I think he's probably going to lead the committee, but a plurality in this offense, which is probably going to be a majority passing offense. I don't know that. I don't know that if that's going to be the case. But, I'm just, I don't know if Edmonds is going to get enough touches consistently to be someone you're excited about putting in your lineup every week. His ADP, I want to say, is around running back 30, and I guess that's roughly fair to me.
Okay.
He's not a guy I'm avoiding. I've taken him in a few best balls. Not a guy I'm targeting, not a guy I'm avoiding. I think his price is fair.
He's someone that feels like he could have a big week and then not be seen for 2.
Yes.
It's not very conducive to fantasy rosters.
Correct.
So we mentioned quite a lot of people. Is there anyone else's name you want to touch upon with their situation, or someone you've got an eye on, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any. We Can
I chuck one at you?
Sure.
Get your thoughts. Dearness Johnson at the Browns.
I would love to see him traded, and I think
I've just got Kareem Hunt being cut or traded with the money they owe him.
Could happen.
Johnson had a decent production when the two of them went down last year. And I think he will have a role this year in Cleveland. And especially if they lose Watson, what is the point in paying Hunt?
Right. And they drafted an interesting running back prospect in Jerome Ford. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they got rid of either Hunt or Dearness. So, and Dearness moves up to number 2, or Dearness goes elsewhere to a team that needs running back help. So yes, he interests me because whenever he's gotten the opportunity, he's produced. So I like him as a very deep sleeper. I guess we haven't
But
talked
he's down
about.
at running back 77.
Yeah, that's just crazy. And I
With
guess
two
the
guys in front of him
one.
that get injured every week.
Let's cover two quick
Go
places
on,
that we
go for
haven't
it.
touched on. Chiefs
Yeah.
and Bills, since
Yeah.
they only produced the most exciting game we've seen in
Yeah. Ever.
I don't know since at least since that Chiefs Rams regular season game of a few years ago. I don't trust Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Nope.
The re-signing of Jerick McKinnon concerns me, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Isaiah Pacheco, who was like a 7th round pick, and Jerry and Ely, who went undrafted, wound up factoring into that. We know Ronald Jones is kind of a disaster in the passing game. We talked about that, but if we don't know with just CEH and Ronald Jones, we figured that CEH was going to play on passing downs. Now that McKinnon is back, now that they've drafted a couple other guys with pass catching skills, I don't know if I want any part of CEH. I don't know if he's any good. And so
I actually feel as a pure runner, Jones may even be better than CEH anyway as a runner. He just doesn't give you the other parts of the game. If Jones could learn to catch a ball and pass block, he's a decent back.
Yes. Yeah, as a pure runner.
2 of the 3 jobs he's got to do. So.
Right. And as a pure runner, maybe he can make that work for fantasy value in Kansas City. I just feel like there's always someone in a draft room who likes Ronald Jones more than I do. And the other one, I noticed...
It's not me, having been a Bucs fan.
A lot of people seem pretty excited about James Cook, the rookie for Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And... maybe a little less enthusiastic for Devin Singletary as a result. And we know that last year, they sort of leaned on Singletary heavily down the stretch because they just seemed to lose all faith in Zach Moss and didn't really have any interest in playing Matt Breida, understandably. So Harris was immensely valuable down the stretch. Now he looks to be less so and back into sort of a platoon role with James Cook. But I think people are excited because James Cook landed in this prolific offense.
The same as CEH the year prior.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think Josh Allen has really enhanced the value of his running backs, and if anything, he's maybe diminished from it. Another case where he likes to run. The mobile quarterbacks tend not to dump off that much because it's just easier for them to run when they're in trouble.
Less risk, yeah.
In the years he has been in Buffalo, Josh Allen has run for 31 touchdowns, and all Buffalo running backs combined have run for 28, 3 less than Josh Allen. Wow. And I think the percentage of targets to running backs for Buffalo has ranked over the last 4 years. It's been 24th, 29th, and 27th or something like that. It's never been in the top half and never close to the top half.
So there's not enough there to sustain 2 of them, you feel?
Yeah, and I just I know James Cook is fast and has pass catching skills. I just don't know if he's in an offense where he's going to be able to leverage what he brings to the table fully. I almost think it was a bad landing spot for him.
I'm still okay with Singletary this year in redraft. I think he was the second guy behind Moss coming into last year. Moss didn't deliver. Singletary did. He did the job they asked of him throughout the season. I don't see why they don't roll with that again. I think James will get his work, but Singletary, I think, will lead that backfield. Can't see James Cook taking that role off him. They're competing this year. They need to win this year. They'll go with the guy they trust, and that hasn't let them down as of yet.
Agree. I think he's going to be the primary early down back, and it's possible Singletary is being undervalued right now.
Yeah, there's not many lead backs going, 6th, 7th, 8th round that you'll probably find him.
Exactly.
Awesome. Pat, thank you for your time. Before we're done, tell everyone again where they can find you, where they can find the work, how to catch up with you.
Dan, thanks for having me. This has been fun. Great conversation.
Yeah.
And people can find my work at FatasyPros and hopefully everything they need to get ready for their drafts. I think we've got a load of stuff for you to read and study and some great tools. And you can mock draft with us. We have the best mock draft tool in the business, bar none. So people can find me there. They can hear me on the Fitz on Fantasy podcast. They can find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
Yeah. Super. Thank you again for joining us, guys. Just a reminder from me, Murph's book is in that corner above Pat's head there. The 5 Yard Rush Fantasy Playbook is out. It's on Amazon. It's a fantastic read. If you haven't got one, go and get one. He's put a lot of time, effort, and it is a very good book. It's worth reading. Murph obviously writes for FatasyPros, so go and check out his content there. And that for me is a wrap, Pat. If you're happy,
I'm pleased. Thank
Super.
you, Dan.
Good. Thank you for your time, sir. And as Murph would always say to everyone here, keep rushing.